Rob Espero here. Be sure to check out volleyballmag.com, powered by Peak 1440, for all the latest news, schedules, and updates in NCAA D1-2 men's volleyball. Also, be sure to follow them on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. That's all the hottest men's volleyball news over at volleyballmag.com, powered by Peak 1440. All right, we're on episode 7 of College Volleyball Weekly. It has been one chaotic week in college volleyball on the men's side. On the screen, we have our consortium of coaching intelligence. That's Dan Friend, head coach at Lewis University, Jay Hosack, head coach of George Mason University, looking for an infirmary of a university currently, but we'll talk about that as we get into our topics.
All I gotta say is thank God you two are here, because you bring the consortium of coaching intelligence way up from where I am. So appreciate it.
Well, as I mentioned, as we started off our show, first topic of the week is a week of 5 setters and upsets. Let's go with the MIVA conference. Dan, pick one that you saw was an upset, because I know there were 4 according to my listing.
Well, I think I would say Quincy over Purdue Fort Wayne. I think that's Quincy's first conference win since I have to go look at it, but I think it's been a few years in terms of that. And so, pretty big for those guys, and winning in 5. And they played a great match the night before that against Loyola and had them on the ropes and almost won that at the same time. So I would say that Quincy match for sure. And they were led by Omar on the kill side, and defensively they were led by one of their middles. Adam Meyer had, I think, 10 blocks, and their libero, Noam Hannon, had 14 digs. But I think with them, they've got a couple foreign guys. Noam's a kid from Israel. He's their libero, and they got a setter. I think it's Yoron Raymakers. Guy's got a great name, Raymakers.
Yeah,
so
Raymakers.
He's actually a graduate. He's actually a graduate student, so he's older. I think playing his college volleyball, and so. But yeah, Quincy for sure. And then Lindenwood getting 2 straight wins. I think Lindenwood's on a 6-match win streak, defeating again Purdue Fort Wayne and defeating Loyola. And so I think those were 2 great wins for that program, and a couple of different guys stepped up in different nights.
How about that Ball State McKendree? That was kind of an unexpected result.
Yes and no. I think you got to realize, so McKendree ended Ball State's season last year in the conference tournament. So I think Ball State was licking their chops for those guys coming in. They're like, hey, McKendree's on a high. They just got done beating Lewis. They're coming into our place. We're playing good volleyball. I think it was great. You know what I mean? I think Ball State was really wanting that win. So,
yep, I would agree with that 100%.
I think Caleb Jennings led them with 21 kills that night, hitting 370. Had a really good night. So,
well, and then you got PFW, 2 losses on the week. First one to Lindenwood 3-1, and then to Loyola 3-2. Jay, feel free to chime in, unless Dan, you want to step in and take the bull by the horns here.
I'll be quick. I think Lindenwood is the hot team at the moment. And when we get to the matches coming up, they're going to be the team that I'm going to be watching. But, when you get a team that all of a sudden finds some confidence and beats a good team, and they go back to their gyms and they figure out, hey, we can actually play at the higher levels and be able to compete and execute and win some of those matches, that's a really dangerous place to be. So anybody playing Lindenwood right now, you better be really well prepared, because they're going to come in with all kinds of guns a-blazing.
Yeah, we got them on Saturday.
Watch that game film, right?
Yeah. We got to play Quincy first on Wednesday, so I get them both. You know what I mean?
Oh, the trap match. That's
eyes on Romeoville, right?
Yeah. Heck, we're better on the road anyway. Can I just go play them in a different gym right now? Shoot. So.
Call up the local high school, see if you can get a match in there.
Yeah, I'm going to go down to Romeoville, so it'll be great. So. I have to just throw in real quick. I think it's interesting with Purdue. I think you look kind of the stats. They didn't hit great either night outside of Pellegrin. I mean, they're riding Pellegrin, and I think they need some help from some other guys stepping up. And so otherwise, Pellegrin, he's a phenomenal player, fantastic player, but he might run out of gas. And so I think that could be part of it. And it'll be interesting. I think they're back home this next week, and if they can settle in and get a good groove and get going again.
Yeah. Well, let's shift on over to the EIVA and the match of the week. You had Harvard for 2, Jay. Took them 3-2 on the first night in a very exciting match. But then on Saturday night, got turned around on you, and they took it 3-1. Talk about that match.
Well, we're facing the injury bug this year, and yet this weekend I faced another starter going down for the year, probably with my libero going out. So, we're just going out there and just trying to compete. And we still got some good players on the court, and they're still fighting their asses off, and we still like our chances against everybody. But the reality is, when you don't have big time players that you usually can rely upon, it can become a little bit tough. So hats off to Harvard. I mean, Harvard beat Grand Canyon in the beginning of the year, and they're a good team. They've got a couple of really good young middles. One of them right now is out with an ankle injury, but he'll be back soon. They got a really good opposite. He's got a live arm. They got a couple outside hitters in Schoenfeld and Lee, both about 6'7" or 6'8". They pass really well. They hit a really quick ball. Their setter, Stavertlik, is running a really fast tempo to the pins. Harvard's a good team. They're going to be a team that I think at the end of the year, they're going to be in the hunt for a playoff spot in the EIVA. We're still the only conference that only takes half of the teams into playoffs. Everybody else gets to go in all their playoffs. We're fighting for spots that are becoming tighter and tighter each week.
Yeah. Well, obviously looking at the conference standings, the MIVA still is a hot mess, and it's odd not seeing Dan Friend's Lewis team atop undefeated. It's Lindenwood at 2-0 on top of that conference. And then for yours, Jay, in the EIVA, you got Penn State as the only undefeated team. So everyone's taking their bumps and bruises early here. So, it should be a fun week. In the FCSF, since we'll touch on that, obviously BYU stands atop, but everything else is just going to be an ugly dogfight. Some teams are hot, like Grand Canyon are teams you got to watch out for. Concordian has a potential. If UCLA figures it out, they're going to be scary good. It's Stanford. They find a groove if they can actually keep an uninjured setter. They could really step up.
And don't forget about the Big West. You've got a three-headed monster in Hawaii, Long Beach, and Santa Barbara. Those are three teams that are going to be fighting for one spot for sure, and maybe for two. They're not going to get both the at-larges.
Right.
And that's going to be an absolute dogfight. One of those teams, take this into consideration, one of those teams won't make it to May in Fairfax. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh.
Hey, I was just going to throw in, I thought Penn State made a good statement. I mean, they got 2 wins in conference against NJIT and Princeton. And so, and certainly important wins when you can get those and you're starting off conference play for sure. So,
yeah. Good call. I
definitely
got to touch on Big West since it is my conference. I was trying to avoid the shame, but it actually is not very shameful because after watching UC San Diego on the ESPN feeds and then having them come into the UC Irvine on Saturday night, Kevin Ring has got a great player in Kyle McCauley. A 5-set match. It was dramatic. It was a great mano-a-mano battle between Schneidmiller and McCauley. It was an extended third set, 28-26, and the teams are going for it. Ryan Liu, their libero, was playing phenomenally. It was a great night of volleyball, a long night. But when it came up, when the match was on the line, Kyle McCauley was the guy that was stepping up. Joel Schneidmiller needed some help from the rest of the team. Static was getting his blocks, but offensively, both sides seemed to be sputtering because I think San Diego hadn't seen a block like Static and Dennis at the pins with Seconda and Camp as well. So, we took a 3-2 loss, and Kyle McCauley was phenomenal in the effort. I'm trying to pull his numbers here, but he hit well over 300, had double-digit kills, and he just was playing really good ball. So hats off to UC San Diego getting their first ever Big West Conference win, by the way. So
nice. That's awesome. Good for Kevin Ring. And, you got to love the guy. He's been there forever and has always dealt with a short deck of cards against everybody else who's got a full deck. Now the guy's starting to compete because he's finally got some cards that he can play with. So super stoked for you, Kevin. Hats off to you, bud.
All right, let's go on to our next topic. Only 2 unbeatens remain. Number 1, Hawaii at 14-0, and number 2, BYU at 13-0. Hawaii had a series against Stanford twice, and Colton Cowell stepped up. talk about the Hawaiian team. Any thoughts?
Well, I think you're going into Stanford still trying to figure it out with Justin Liu's setting, and ultimately Hawaii goes in, and Rado has a great night the second night. Colton was good the first night. Wasn't a real high hitting percentage the first night, just in terms of either team. But I think Hawaii's too formidable. I think, granted, we talked about Justin Sutton last week, and he did a great job, but I just think, going against, one of the best teams in the country, they just got too many weapons, and, Stanford's just not in a good enough groove with those pieces right now to compete at that level right now. So it's not shocking that they go in there and get both those wins like that. So
yeah, I'd agree. And I think Litsky got the nod the second night to set against Hawaii. So, now you got a young guy who's getting in there who I don't know why he wasn't playing early in the year, possibly an injury. It's been going around a little bit, but he's a freshman. You can't knock a kid who's just trying to get in there and get some competing time and then doesn't maybe know how to run an offense quite as savvy as some of the older guys around the country. But, Stanford's going to be good the entire year. As long as they can remain healthy, they're going to figure some things out. The MPS stuff right now is a jumble of craziness, and everybody can beat everybody. BYU obviously is still the team to beat, but yeah, I'm with Dan. UCLA at the end of the year is going to be dangerous. Grand Canyon is going to be dangerous. Stanford's going to be dangerous. You never know who's going to beat somebody on any given night.
Yeah. Well, just on night one of Hawaii-Stanford, Rado had 15 kills, hit 462. Philip Humler, 13 kills, hit 632. But on the other side, Stanford Jalen Jasper led the way, 10 kills, but he hit 097. So I have a feeling the Hawaiian block, was it the Manoa Roofing Company, was taking charge that night. Let's jump over to BYU. They had Grand Canyon this weekend. There was no Gabby Garcia Fernandez in attendance. They ended up winning in a sweep, but Felipe de Brito Ferreira, their middle, goes down in the first set and hopefully not a serious ankle sprain. It looked like an ankle, but they still handily beat a very hot Grand Canyon team. Any thoughts on the team from either of you?
Yeah, I didn't get to see that match live. Do you guys know which arena that was played in? I just saw the stat book and everything afterwards. Do you know if
they went to the big arena? They went to the big arena on that one. Yeah,
I just, it's one of those things where I thought Grand Canyon would get a game off of him for sure, if not push them, just with, him being out. And so I was a little surprised with that, but it just shows you some depth that BYU has with some pieces. You know what I mean? And so and they could be messing a guy here or there and have another guy step in and still be, pretty formidable, if not, one of the best teams, if not the best team right now. So
yeah, that's the thing I take away from is it just shows the depth of BYU. Any team that wins a championship, whether it's conference or national, the immediate thought process is, the second place team in the gym that night was the team that lost, but the real second place team is the team they practice against every day. And BYU has got a ginormous roster of a very deep amount of players. And
Jake, you trade for some guys?
Yeah, I'm actually got a phone call into them right now. I'm hoping I can pull a couple of them up.
Well, I just was following the chat boards, aka Volley Talk, trying to figure out why Gabby wasn't there. And it was, people are saying it was just a night off, nothing wrong. So maybe just wants to do some load management by Coach Olmstead. So, that was an opportunity.
You got to remember with that match, though, none of their passing core was out. So the whole passing core is there, the setter's there. So, I mean, when you have that, and I'm not downplaying an opposite, but he makes them that much better on a grind-out match. But my guess is they were just in system, and, you saw, Alex, go in and, have the same time attempts that Gabby was going to have and play great. You know what I mean? And so yeah.
Yeah. Well, on that BYU squad, I'm certain that Gabby and Davide have got to hit one of the hardest balls in the nation. I haven't seen Penn State in person, but I think they got some guys who can load up like Calvin Mendy and Wildman. With a name like that, if he hits a hard ball, that's awesome publicity. So, with two guys that can load up like that at your pins, BYU's looking really strong. And they had a guy, Alex Asu, who stepped in for Gabby to play opposite that night, and he did really well. Yeah. So, BYU, talent and depth is a good combination, especially in a long season. Which brings us to our setup for March Melee. That's number 1 Hawaii against number 2 BYU in the Stan Sheriff Center. Both teams, I'm assuming, will probably be undefeated. Yeah, I hate to jinx one team, BYU, but I mean, no, I'm not jinxing them. I'm just saying that if you look at the other teams' records.
Yeah. Wow. You will never be allowed back on the island with that statement, man.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying it's going to be a formidable matchup because you have obviously the best in the nation that go head to head, and that could be potentially a national championship match. With that matchup coming up in March, the schedule for Hawaii, they have 2, I guess they're considered exhibition matches against Nitadai, which is also known as the Nippon Sports Science University. They've got 2 against them. BYU has Concordia, USC, and Stanford. How do you prep for this? You've got this looming on the outset as coaching staff. How do you prepare your guys? Uh-oh, no one wants to take it.
No, I'll take it. It's a much different setup.
Yeah.
Hawaii, who is playing against a team that means nothing. And I say that with all due respect. I'm sure they're a good team, and I'm sure it's going to be fun volleyball, but there's no pressure for that. You can play your entire B side, rest your A side guys for the entire weekend, and it won't hurt you. I'm not so sure how that gets done in the middle of a season, but regardless of that, then you got BYU playing against teams that matter, and that pressure and that added, intensity of playing against teams in your conference. That's going to mean something, I think, down the line. And I think, Hawaii's they're not going to struggle because of it. It doesn't mean that they're all of a sudden going to, fall off the face of the earth. But when your matches mean something, there's just a little bit out of pressure and a little bit of added intensity. And I think that they're going to be able to, maybe not gain as much from it as BYU will from their matches coming up.
Right.
Yeah, I think I agree with Jay. That mental edge that you want to keep throughout the year from week to week and a build up, and do they take a little bit of that off? Are they not quite ready as BYU walks in there because BYU had a conference match? So maybe it doesn't matter at all. Maybe the rest does them good. I don't know, but I certainly think you want to keep your guys sharp from week to week, and I'm sure Charlie will have his guys prepped and ready to go, and it'll be one of the best matches we see this year, hopefully, in terms of that, and from 2 big teams going at it. So,
right. Let's shift over to our top performers of the week. Let's go with Jay. I think I had Dan go first last time. Pick 1 or 2.
Yeah, I'm going to pick 2. One of them is going to be a team, though. I'm giving Lindenwood a nod here as a team. Coming out with your first conference win since 2017. Beating a ranked program in that process, you got to give hats off to the coaching staff at Lindenwood and to the players. Nice job, way to step up. I'm going to go with Dan's guy, Coonan. He played against Ohio State and Ball State this weekend, obviously, and hit 492 on the weekend, which is ridiculous, averaging 5.1 kills per game. That kid is a beast and is going to make a lot of money playing professionally in the next few years, and he's going to probably get a chance to go with the national team, and the kid's going to make an impact, I think. So hats off to Coonan. Way to go for that weekend.
All right, Dan, how about your top performers?
I got 2. I got Brett Wildman at Penn State. Man, the guy was steady again as a rock. 17 for 25, hit 560 one night, 17 for 30, hit 433 another night. 18 points and 19.5 points. I mean, ultimately, Penn State's using him where they need to use him, man. He's playing really good volleyball. So, and then I got one more, Kofi, kind of seeing the reemergence of him a little bit. Usually with 2 good wins this past weekend, hit 600, identical stat line, 14 for 20, 14 for 20, hit 600 both nights. I had a few blocks the first night, so he ended up with 18.5 points, but I think they were setting him on the outside as well in terms of that. And so I think certainly anchored them in terms of offensive for 2 good wins for them.
All right, great picks. I'm going to just go with 1 because Kyle McCauley came into my house and beat my guys 3-2, but it was an amazing performance. 24 kills, 333 hitting, 3 aces, 2 block assists, 10 digs, total of 28 points. But it was the situations in which he delivered. It was when the sets or the match was on the line, he came up big with a dig or a put away, and it was junk that he was getting too, because there were some bombs being delivered by Schneidmiller. They were being picked up by Lou and a set would come off the net. They'd be out of system, and McCauley would just go for it and would get those kills off the block or just split the seam. So Kyle McCauley, great effort, and with that gave UCSD their first ever Big West Conference win. So I've got to go with that. And let's shift over into our matches to watch in Week 8. And I know there's a lot. Who feels like they can really take charge and lead us in? Nobody.
I don't know about take charge or lead us in, but I can certainly talk about a few, and certainly our conference, So Lindenwood, who's the hot team in conference right now and at the top, is going to play McKendree on Thursday. And those guys are, I think, a pretty big rival. It's like us and Loyola down the street from each other. McKendree's coming off 2 tough road losses, and they're going to be at home. Lindenwood's got to go to their place. So I certainly think that becomes a pretty big match for both those teams right there. So, and then for me, we got our own 2 matches in my own backyard, so I'm going to put them on there. I got Quincy, who's coming off, 2 great matches in their first conference win in a while. And then you got Lindenwood for us, and if they beat McKendree, they'll be 7-match win streak, pretty hot coming into our place. And so those would be the matches I'd probably highlight. So,
all right. How about you, Jake?
I got a few here. I'm going to be watching USC Stanford. USC is really licking their wounds and trying to figure out who they're going to be for the rest of this year. And so Stanford right now, maybe not licking their wounds. Losing to Hawaii is not, it's not a bad thing. They're obviously a good team, but they're trying to find their setter, and is Litsky going to be the guy? So I want to see USC Stanford. I'm going to be watching Ball State and Purdue Fort Wayne. That's Battle, Indiana. Always a good match. It's kind of the equivalent of UCLA, USC, and it's just nothing matters in terms of record. They're just going to go in there and they're just going to battle hard. And right now, Ball State's on a little bit of a hot streak, and Purdue Fort Wayne's on a little bit of a down streak. We'll see if they can figure that last one out. And then my last one that I'm going to be watching is Santa Barbara, UCLA. UCLA is back with Kofi, still kind of figuring some lineup stuff out. Santa Barbara had a weekend off, and they're going to be fresh. And I think Santa Barbara is going to give UCLA a run for their money. I'm leaning towards Santa Barbara on this one, but that's going to be a really interesting one to watch.
Good calls on that one. And that actually was mine also, Jay. But I'm going to go with the other UCSB match when they take on Pepperdine, because Pepperdine is second in the MPSF. UC Santa Barbara is coming off a break. Big West has been pretty idle here because Long Beach State had their alumni match, and that was their big action for the week. They take on Westcliff this week. But still, we have not seen these 2 teams that are expected to be the top of the Big West. So Santa Barbara goes into action first against the quality opponents of UCLA, and then Pepperdine. The other match I'm going to watch, and it's not because I'm a homer, is going to be the turnaround match, UC Irvine at UC San Diego. Don't know if you guys caught it, but in the third set at Irvine with San Diego, Irvine started with Akil Tanakatur at the service line for a middle. Irvine ran out of middles at the end of the match in that extended deuce set. And UCSD exploited our lack of middle in a huge way. First, Akil, who stands at 6'1", 6'2", tried to take a couple jumps in the middle, unsuccessful against a hot Kyle McCauley. And then Brian Garcia, who stepped in the set for Patrick Vorenkamp, stepped in the middle, and then he had 2 outside hitters. It just didn't fare well for Irvine. So that set, Irvine served for that set a couple times and ended up losing it 28-26 because
I just want to say it must be nice to be able to have subs that you can just, go in and out whenever you want. I don't know what that feels like. So,
Hey, the one other match I forgot to throw in there is Ball State at Loyola. I don't think Ball State has won at Loyola in like 10 years.
Wow.
I'm not sure about that, but I know it's been a long time. And you got a Loyola team who's, ultimately trying to figure it out, and a Ball State team who could be pretty formidable. So that'll be an interesting one. I think that's on, I believe, Saturday. So.
Well, great. Well, we've got a full week of action. All conferences are in effect. And big thanks to Dan Friend of Lewis University, who also George Mason, our consortium of artificial intelligence, college volleyball league, episode 7.